It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Bruce Olav Solheim. Hey, Bruce, how are you?
Good. Thank you, Douglas, for having me on your show. I guess I'm a return visitor.
Yeah, you are a return visitor. And so thank you for coming back. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You've got some comic books out now called Snark. Is that correct?
Yes, I got two of them out. Actually, the first one came out late 2019, early 2020, and that was Snark 1. And now Snark 2 just came out just last week, and it's it's grown up. It's a graphic novel, so it's much bigger, more stories, all color, interior. So yeah, same artist, Gary Dumm of American Splendor fame, been a comic book artist since the 70s. So It's really the same production team as Snark 1 and the same old writer. So just the continuing adventures.
So is this your first venture into comic book / graphic novels? Were you traditional before this?
Yeah, it was 37 years in the making, Snark 1. I drew and wrote a comic strip in the 80s. 1982, actually, when I was in engineering school, Montana Tech, Butte, Montana. And I did 5 different strips for the school newspaper. It was very popular. And then I flunked out of engineering school and joined the Army, and then Snark went on the back burner for quite a while. And it wasn't until 2019 that my second eldest son brought it back by making a bust of the Snark's head with his 3D printer, and that inspired me to get Gary to help me illustrate and really have a dream come true, which is I've always wanted to have a published comic book. I mean, I've written comic strips and had them published, and like I said, and even a comic book that I created myself when I was 15. But this was a dream come true. Of all the things, it's funny, I published a lot of books and had plays produced, but that comic book was like the crowning achievement for me as a writer.
How is it different writing a comic book than writing a traditional novel?
Yeah, well, the first thing, I'll just quote Harvey Pekar from American Splendor. He passed away in 2010, but there's a movie about him, about his life in 2003, starring Paul Giamatti. Really wonderful movie, won a lot of awards. But he said, to quote him, he said, "You can do anything with words and pictures." And so it doesn't limit you at all as a writer. It is a different kind of writing because each picture tells a story, and you can't be redundant. You can't have the drawing of the character doing something and then the dialogue says what the picture is doing. So you got to work in concert with it. Everybody does their part. You know, the text, the dialogue does its part, and you really have to understand sequential art and how to write comics for the artist. And the cool thing about Gary and I is that, I've been involved in comics or, collecting and appreciating them for so long. So I kind of understand how it works. So when I give Gary Dumm, the artist, the rough copy, the text, I have already drawn some little pictures and actually, crude drawings and kind of mapped it out how I'd like it to be. And then he throws that out and does his own thing, which is much better. Sometimes he'll accept stuff that I do and illustrate it, but for the most part, it's a melding of minds that creates this comic book. So really for comics, it just opens up so much to me as a writer, and I really enjoy it. And I say it every time I talk about Snark or comic books, that I learned to read because of comic books. So I owe a big debt to the comics industry for helping me learn how to read, because I really struggled. So it was the visual that really helped me, catch on.
So it's got to be more like writing a screenplay than writing a novel.
In a way, because I've never written a screenplay completely, but as far as sequential art, how it's kind of like a storybook kind of like how they do it for a movie,
a film,
storyboard. I guess they
Right.
call it a storyboard. So it's very, very similar. So I think that's why it's really quite easy for Marvel Studios to take a lot of the comic books that are already done, and you got the characters fleshed out, the
Right.
storylines, and you already got the storyboards that I think they probably use already. So that's a lot of work already done for you. So yeah, there is a similarity in that respect.
Well, also from my own personal experience, I've never written a novel, but I've written 2 screenplays. And when I've spoke with authors of both novels and screenplays, they said it's a completely opposite process, because a novel is, to basically in simple terms, you use a lot of words, where a screenplay is the absence of words. You need to be
Yes.
very economical with your words and just use the minimum amount of words to get the scene across, because the majority of the scene will be described and displayed in the picture.
The word economic use of words, yeah, that I like that. That's exactly what it is. If you're too wordy, it takes away from the pictures, and it makes a messy page on a comic book page. And it would be too much dialogue in a movie is, it becomes a little bit too much. You want to see the story in the arc of the story in the pictures, or in the moving picture, I guess, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I admire you for writing screenplays. I've tried to write screenplays. I tend to be rather wordy, except when I'm doing comic books. So maybe I could write a screenplay now that I think about it. I'll just do a comic book, or convert my comic books into a screenplay. How's that? Maybe I could do it that way.
Well, that would be a lot easier, because you're sort of halfway there already.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I kind of have that idea for this. We've been doing online plays this last year during the pandemic, and we've got 4 of them. We're on our 4th one now, and our 5th one is actually going to be Snark. We're going to do we're thinking of doing animation and using voice actors and stuff, and so that will be my venture into that world, into your world there of writing screenplays. But you're right about novels. I've only written 1 novel. I've written a lot of short stories, a lot of poetry, and nonfiction books and memoirs and stuff. But novels, it's so much in your head and so isolated, and you're really isolated, and you hope that people will like it. I mean, you might give it to a few friends, and they'll look at it, but it's such an isolated thing. Whereas, being a screenplay writer, although you start that way, you quickly hand it off, and there's all these people that work all their magic. Kind of like there's a very similarity to theatrical plays, in that sense. It's a communal effort, especially in the theater. And although theater plays can be a little more wordy than a screenplay, I would think. But that's kind of my. I'm used to writing plays. I've written 10 plays and had 5 plays produced, and so I enjoy writing for the stage, although now it's a virtual stage that we've created in the last year. But all these different kinds of writing have a very steep learning curve, and there's differences, and it doesn't always translate. Like I always think of F. Scott Fitzgerald, a classic American writer, tried to make it in Hollywood and couldn't. He just, there's a special type of writing. I guess he was too wordy.
Well, perhaps, although years later they did adapt The Great Gatsby into a nice film.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, two of them, right?
Two.
The 70s one. Actually, a fellow teacher of mine at Citrus College, where I teach, was in the first one as an extra. He was in the dance scene, the ballroom scene, or whatever. Unfortunately, he passed away about a year ago. But anyway, he was in that first one, and then I've only seen parts of the second one, the one with Leonardo DiCaprio.
It's good, but it's a little bit surreal.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it reminded me of they took The Great Gatsby and combined it with Batman.
Okay.
Because it has that certain, not all the Batmans, though. See, all the Batmans are different. What was that really surreal Batman one? Was that the one
who was the Batman in it?
That's what I'm trying to think.
George Clooney?
Um,
Michael Keaton. I really like Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton, Batman. Christian Bale was another.
Christian Bale. What's his name? Good Will Hunting co-author guy.
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck, yeah.
It was one of those.
Yeah, one of those. Who knows?
Speaking of The Great Gatsby, it's funny. It is a small world. A friend of mine was also in that movie. Her name is Katherine Lee Scott.
Oh.
And she was in, I would say more than an extra, but not, she was credited. So, but she was,
nice.
I'm trying to think of the scene she was in. It might have been the party scene. She kind of flirted with Robert Redford.
Ah, okay. That must have been fun.
Yeah.
For her.
Have you heard of her? Because she was one of the stars of Dark Shadows.
I've heard of the name. The name sounds really familiar.
You remember Dark Shadows?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Dark Shadows was kind of a soap opera, but a horror soap opera.
Right. It was a soap opera with vampires and ghosts.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
It was very different in that respect.
Very, very different. She was one of the stars of that. And
cool. I'll have to look her up again.
Yeah. Great lady. She's been on the show a couple times.
Oh, that's neat.
We have a romance going on the air.
Oh, good.
I'd like to say, no, I'm kidding. You know what I mean.
Well, it's a virtual world now, so.
Yeah, but she is beautiful and charming and wonderful. So I can't say enough about her. But yeah, check her out. Go on to IMDb and you can see her list. And now she's an author. Now she's written about 6 books, and
cool.
She does Dark Shadows. What do they call those? When people, not revivals, but like they go on tour, like those Star Trek conventions. I guess Dark Shadows convention. I guess she does those with the people.
And they have I know they have fan fiction, but she was part of it, so she's not really a fan, but she's, was part of it. But
right.
Yeah, and it's a whole industry. Like Star Trek has all the original and all the others, all this fan fiction. It's just, I don't know, thousands and thousands of books about the characters,
Yeah,
people.
Exactly. Was your Lockdown Theater, is that you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That, you know what, now it's all coming back. See, the haze is just fading away. That's what we talked about the last time you were on the show.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we've done 4 productions. Right now we're doing one called Allie's Bees, and it was originally a play, and then I wrote a novel from the original play for middle grade readers, and then I took the original play and I made it into a stream play, which is what we're doing now, where we have live theatrical play, online, remote actors, 3D virtual world sets created by our technical directors. So we call them stream plays, and this is our 4th one. We're doing it for schools now. Yeah, so we're staying busy.
I think I just saw something on YouTube of yours, but it didn't look like a play. It looked like a giant conference call.
Oh, there was we had it was a kind of it's kind of one of those things where we were playing the recording of the live play in the background, and then all the cast and crew were talking and about different things. So maybe that was it that you saw.
So I couldn't figure that out. I thought it was going to be the play, because I did go on to look, and then I just saw this. So that was sort of the after party online kind of thing.
Yeah, at 5:00 we just played played the tape of the play. It was a world premiere, and then after that we played it again, but this time with everybody talking heads and stuff, talking about the play and their role and different things.
Oh, okay.
So I do have I think the link is somewhere I could send to you if you want to uninterrupted see it.
Yeah, I'd love to. I was intrigued by it.
I'll send you the link.
So we've got about 2 minutes left. Let's just hit on Snark. So what is the basic, what is Snark exactly?
Yeah, Snark is a alien hybrid. He's part alien, part human. He's sent to Earth to help prepare us for colonization. And his home planet's in trouble, and they've decided they're kind of a bellicose bunch. They're reptilians on the home planet. Anyway, they send him because he's familiar with Earth, being half human, and him and his comedic sidekick, a talking stick named the Cosmic Staff, who's kind of the comedy relief, come to Earth to prepare us. But when they get there, they both decide, and Snark especially decides he really likes us and wants to, instead of preparing for invasion, instead protect us. and try to figure out a solution for his home planet. So he's kind of stuck, and the home planet is very upset with him. The emperor there, the empress actually, gets very upset with him that he's not completing his mission. So he goes and has different adventures. He'll go meet with homeless people. He'll go to all over the place. He'll go to Area 51, and he went to Devil's Tower, and so he goes to all these different places, meets different American people, and he goes to Mount Rushmore. Anyway, he has adventures there. There's always a historical route to it because I'm a historian, so, and there's social issues, but it's not pedantic, nobody's preaching to anybody. He just experiences it. And so there's comedy, there's history, there's social issues, there's science fiction and fantasy kind of all mixed together in these stories in of his adventures. So yeah, that's what it's been. It's been a fun ride, a lot of time jumping, so that's fun too.
Are these for kids? Are these written for children, or are they adults, or what?
It's all ages.
All ages.
But it's kind of like the Bullwinkle show, the old Bullwinkle
show, yeah,
Rocky Bullwinkle, where it's written for different levels. So you can read it at different levels. A kid will see it and think it's pretty cool, and an adult will go, "Oh, I get what he's doing there," because it might not be, a little kid might not understand it, but it's not so shocking or that it's not that a child couldn't. In other words, it's G-rated or PG or whatever. So there's no problems there. So I wanted to make it all ages. And Snark really is a very kind, half alien, half human person, or entity. And it brings up a lot of issues about, who are these aliens and what do they want? And, some of them are good and some are not so good. And what does it all mean? But there's a lot of humor in there too, which really the cosmic staff provides that humor, and you find out the background, how he became a cosmic staff, and he has, I'll just give you kind of clue, he really likes the Rat Pack, so that's his part of Earth history. The 60s, he was really into the Rat Pack, so he kind of has that lingo.
Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and those guys?
And Sammy Davis
Jr.
He digs that. He always wants to go to Vegas and Atlantic City and Miami and whatever. He likes a good time. So Snark is kind of the straight man to his
Is anybody from the Rat Pack still alive?
I think they're all gone. Yeah, I think every single one of them.
Joey Bishop, is he still alive?
Yeah, Joey Bishop, Peter Lawford, I think they're all gone. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Joey Bishop's gone. That's a good question. That might be the only question mark.
He's the only one that I can't decide if he's dead or not. Because I know
it's like one of those games, alive or dead. Or my favorite one was alive or Canadian.
There you go.
I have Canadian friends, so they sometimes.
We do have to wrap this up. We are out of time. Do you have a website for the Snark comic?
Yeah, the best way to do it is just go to my author website, BruceOlavSolheim.com. And that's OLAV, my middle name, and Solheim, SOLHEIM. BruceOlavSolheim.com. You can see all the stuff I'm up to, all the plays, all the books, all the academic books and comic books and the paranormal books, all the whole thing.
Great. Well, thanks so much for coming back on the show. Always nice talking to you.
Thank you, Douglas. I had fun. We can talk about so many different things.
I think we can. I think we could have gone on and on. All right. Take care, Bruce.
All right. You too.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Love coffee, huh? But wait a minute. It seems like every time you finish a cup of coffee, you get all of these side effects along with it. heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, acid reflux. As the world's first and only organic acid-free coffee, Tyler's Coffee is able to provide a healthier option in the solution for more than 100 million individuals who have sensitive stomachs or suffer from acid-related modalities. This is Tyler's acid-free coffee. Coffee without the consequences.
Hi, this is John Morgan, production supervisor for DJC Productions, and you're listening to The Douglas Coleman Show.
Okay, please welcome to The Douglas Coleman Show, Nancy Hite. Hi, Nancy. How are you?
I'm doing great this afternoon.
Well, thank you for coming on this show. I appreciate it. So you are a certified financial planner, is that correct?
That is correct, as well as a fiduciary, which means the client's needs and desires come first. It's not about Nancy.
Not about Nancy. Okay. You've also written a book called The Retirement Mirage, Time to Think Differently. What is the Retirement Mirage? Tell us about that. What are people's, misinformation about retirement?
Well, I think that's true. I mean, helping people is my passion. And I help people live a happy, prosperous retirement. And I've helped hundreds of people enjoy a successful retirement. And I wrote the book to share many of the valuable, powerful lessons I've learned about how people can thrive in retirement, never run out of money, and enjoy the best decades of their lives. Now, I wrote this book because what I was seeing in the real world terrified me. And I knew I had to start reaching people to get them to start thinking outside the box.
Well, okay, first let's define what is the box. What is the normal perception of people with their retirement?
Well, they're thinking about retirement the same way their grandparents and maybe their parents did. They worked until they were 62, 65, then they stopped working, and then they supposedly had enough money saved up that they wouldn't have to worry. But as the current generation that is retired has found out, modern medicine is keeping us alive. It's not unusual to hear about people that are living to be 100 or even over that. It's unlikely that most of us will have saved enough money during our 30 years of work to have enough saved so that we will be able to live on that money for the next 35 years. It's just not a 21st century reality. And we need to start thinking differently. And that is why I wrote the book.
Okay, so yeah, people are living a lot longer than they did. The average life expectancy in the United States now is what? About 82, 83, 85, somewhere in there?
Exactly. And because of modern medicine replacing most of our body parts, we may not have the same quality of life we did in our 50s and 40s. However, we don't die from the issues that we have. You don't even die from Alzheimer's. You may fall, and that might cause you to have an injury that caused you to die. But as I said, I mean, when I was a kid, we'd have, I think it was Will Scott on the Today Show, he'd show a picture of Bessie Smith. Bessie Smith is 100 years old. There got to be so many people that were 100 that they cut the segment out. They couldn't keep up. So I plan people out to 100. I want to make sure that they don't run out of money before they run out of time. So they're not thinking about that, and that's why it's different in the 21st century.
Well, Social Security certainly was never set up for people to be living to 100. That's for sure.
Well, that's absolutely true. Matter of fact, when Roosevelt started Social Security, everyone had pensions. Everybody had savings. In those days, in the 40s, people really worked until they died. That was not unusual. And Social Security was supposed to be the frosting on the cake. In today's world, the only people that have pensions are people that work for the government, so we have a two-tier class system as far as that goes. And the only thing left for us people that aren't in the government is the frosting on the cake. And we can't live on that, and that is the problem.
Right, exactly. And we don't know the status of it anyways. We've been hearing for years that Social Security was going to run out of money. They weren't going to have enough money. People were living too long. All kinds of problems with that. But you're right that a lot of people they only have that. That's their only source of income. I know several who are in their 70s, and that's it. That's all they get every month.
Well, that happens to be true, and that is why I wrote the book, because in writing the book, I tried, cooking is a hobby of mine, and so what I tried to do is to do an analogy with cooking and financial planning, a step-by-step process, or break it down as if it's a recipe so it's not overwhelming. I try to KISS, keep it simple, sweetie. There are only 3 things you can do with money. We don't do brain surgery. Spend it now, spend it later, and later doesn't have to be 30 years. It could be 4 or 5 years. Or spend it never. We're going to give it to our kids or grandkids or charity. And we just need to understand what it is we're doing with the money and make some adjustments for the later. And that doesn't happen. And there are simple ways to make that happen.
Before we get to those, how to do those, I wanted to ask you, do you think that at this point that people should actually be working longer than that 62 to 65 age that a lot of people have stuck in their head? I mean, should we be going on to 70, 75 before we stop working?
Well, let's put that aside for a minute. What I think we should really be doing in maintaining it is maintaining our hobbies, the things we used to love to do as a kid. Maybe you love to play golf, and you're not a great golfer, but you love being on the golf course, but you can't afford to belong to the golf course now. So maybe you could become a ranger and get free golf. Or maybe you like to bake, and you can bake cookies and become the cookie lady or the cookie chef around your community. So, and maybe you love to fish, and you can take people out on a fishing boat and teach them how to put the right bait on and what kind of fish they're going to catch. So I want to encourage people to maintain their dreams and develop their hobbies so they will always have a way to make a few extra $100 during the week or during the month. For example, I love what I do. I never plan on retiring. I happen to be fortunate. But not everybody is working in a scenario where they're thrilled to be there on Monday morning. To me, Monday morning is a great day, not a day of work. So if we have our hobbies and develop them, and parents need to develop them with children when they're in grammar school, whatever they love to do, encourage it so that they will always have something where they can make a few bucks and love what they're doing. So it's not about necessarily working the job, because you want to find alternate ways to make a few extra bucks. And this can go on all during your lifetime. It doesn't have to be just after you stop working at the place where you're currently working now.
Well, that's very true, although some people's passions do not necessarily equate into money-making ventures. Some people like to paint, some people like to sing, some people like... But particularly in the performing arts, those are very difficult to turn into money.
Well, that's not necessarily true. If you like to paint, maybe your medium is watercolor or oil. You never know that you might be able to do some artwork. You could maybe extrapolate it down, and you could teach an art class to young kids in school. It seems to me, when I see what's going on in education, when I went to school, we had shop for the boys and cooking for the girls. Of course, in the 21st century, we find that there are many men who love to cook, and they're great chefs. So we'd have the men in the cooking class and the girls in the shop with the hammers and the chisels. So there were many things that you can teach if you like to do those skills. And even though they're in the arts, you could teach young people and make some money that way. So as I said, you need to think outside the box, be creative, and I will venture to say that, yes, most people can find a way to make a few extra bucks.
Well, that's encouraging. What about 401ks? Should we talk about that?
We can.
Okay.
Let me say this. Saving for retirement is a wonderful thing to do. The question I always ask people is, would you rather pay the taxes on the seeds or the crop? And when most people think about that, they say, no, I'd much rather pay on the seeds. I said, okay. I said, the government has a tendency to entice us to do something, but they then end up taking what's left or what it grows to with both hands. So if you have a regular 401k, they're giving you a little break on the taxes now. It's going to grow tax deferred, but they're going to force you to take it out. They've just recently changed the age to 72, not 70. So they're going to force you to take it out whether you want to take it or not, and then pay income tax. And at that point in your life, you probably have very few itemized deductions. You probably have to take a standard deduction. So your taxes are higher. And not only that, if they've changed the tax laws so that if you end up leaving it to somebody that's not your spouse, your children or whoever you leave it to has to take the money out within 10 years. So we have to be careful about what the government is telling us that they're doing in our benefit. We need to find ways around it. So if your company, and I am surprised that all companies that have 401ks do not offer a Roth 401k. That would help in some scenarios. But one of the other things before you even do that is after what we've gone through this past year with COVID and many people have lost their jobs, we realize that having an emergency fund, a minimum of 6 to 8 months of living expenses, sitting in the bank, I know we're not going to get a lot of interest, but it gives you peace of mind. You have a place to go to get money. It helps you in many ways. So many people have gone through that now. So rather than refunding their 401ks, I would say let's get set up with some kind of an emergency fund. I have clients that have a year of living expenses sitting in the bank. They buy a CD, okay, so they get, an extra point or two, but they're not doing it for that reason. They're doing it for peace of mind so they don't have to have credit card debt up the gazoo.
Well, that's true, although not everyone can afford to do that, unfortunately.
Cannot afford to do what?
To save that much money.
Well, they can. This is where we come back to spend it now, spend it later, or spend it never. One of the things that I mention in the book is I talk about before you go to buy something or when you're in the store, ask yourself, take 20 seconds and say, do I need this or do I want this? If you absolutely want it and you can't live without it, then buy it. That's okay. On the other hand, many times after the first couple of weeks of asking yourself that question, you'll find that more often than not, you're going to put it back on the shelf and say, I really don't, I can do without this. I don't need it. And that will help you start to save for the emergency fund that you need to have so that you don't have to run up the credit card debt. Nothing happens overnight, but it takes time like anything else. You're saving for retirement, which is 30 years away, or you think it is, although I say it's a mirage. But rather than putting it in the 401k, get started with the emergency fund. That same money that you're putting in can go in the bank.
So going back to my question about, do you think people should work longer? I mean, should that be the new norm now instead of 65, which is stuck in most of our heads? Do you think that it should be pushed up to 70?
I think that's a personal judgment. I don't think it's appropriate for me to say that there's a certain age you should work. If you happen to have a profession that you love, as I do, I don't even look at it as work. On the other hand, if you have a profession that oh my God, Monday's coming, I hate that job, well, then you need to think about either changing jobs, and that's again where the emergency fund comes in. You may have an opportunity to get a job that's paying less, but you can't take it because you don't have any cushion of money. The new job offer has great potential where you could go and double your salary over the next couple of years, but you're spending everything you're making now, and so there isn't any emergency fund. But if you had that extra money, you could draw it down to fill in the gaps and take the other job. So it really makes you in control of your financial life if you have that cushion of money. I think that's more important than putting money in the 401k in today's world, even though the company may be matching 3% or 5%. We need to think about what is really happening financially in your life currently, the present time.
Well, I hope that we don't have COVID every couple of years. I mean, this is like a once-in-a-100-year situation. So I think that kind of caught everybody by surprise.
Doug, we said that about 9/11. We're always having black swan events. A black swan event, as you know, is something that you can't predict. You never know when it's going to happen, and it's a disaster and changes your whole life. You're right. We never expected a pandemic. We never expected 9/11. We didn't expect 2008 when the market took a drastic turn. So it's like hurricanes. We don't expect them. The center of the country has had some terrible hurricanes recently. For them, that was a black swan event. Yes, they expect bad rain, some wind, but not that people get killed in the hurricane. So I think we need to be realistic that we need to prepare and have some kind of a plan so that we can't have all the answers to everything, but we need to have the financial umbrellas, I call them, in our life to help us get through, because we have to realize they are going to happen, even though we don't expect them. And don't forget, we're here on a lease with no guarantees. How many times
That's true.
for somebody who, has a disability that they got because of an automobile accident, and that restricts where they can work and what they can do. That they didn't prepare for that. But it's possible. You're a good driver, but the person behind you is on drugs and texting, and they hit you when you become seriously injured. Now what do? So
well, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I'm a positive person. And I think having a plan where you take a look at what the different options are is very important. We want to be reality-based. It's not about being negative or thinking only the worst. As I said, as a certified financial planner and an insurance expert, I want people to have faced reality. As I said, we're here on a lease with no guarantees. And so I help people through the book educate them about the financial realities of our modern world, especially as they impact future income and retirement. And I think in the book I empower people with knowledge and strategies to successfully deal with these realities. And I have found, after 20 years being a certified financial planner, when we give people and we empower them with knowledge and proven strategies, then they can make a nearly utopian vision of their retirement a reality. I want them to keep their dreams. I don't want them to throw them away. I want them to have them. And I tell stories in the book that are stories of different clients I've had through the years, and how we've, working together with simple strategies, have been able to overcome the problems that they thought I can never get out from under. And that's not true. It's just a matter of having some direction, and I think that's why the book has become so popular. Especially, not everybody who does financial planning is a certified financial planner or a fiduciary. And I think that makes a difference.
Nancy, we got to wrap this up. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yes, the Strategic Wealth Advisor. And on that, they'll be able to also buy the book. I'm running a special this month on the ebook. If you go to Amazon, the ebook this month is running 99 cents as opposed to the paperback. And I hope that the readers will feel empowered that with the proper knowledge and guidance from an expert, they can control their retirement planning and their retirement finances. Retiring when you're young is fine if you have enough money to make it last. But most of us will be retired for more years than we worked. Now, that didn't happen to our grandparents and our parents.
No, certainly didn't. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I enjoyed our time